Hi, I'm Michelle Vickers.
And I'm Christine Beverly.
Welcome to the Consciousness Insider.
This week we have our question from Karen, and she writes, Dear Michelle, having read your inspiring and empowering book Believe, I would like some clarification on terminology, which often seem to have different meanings depending on the source. Prior to reading your book Believe, which I highly recommend, I would use terms such as gut feeling, intuition, higher self, and subconsciousness. I don't think I had ever considered my soul as a part of me that I could lose connection with. Now I'm questioning terminology I've used in the past and wonder if or how it relates to your understanding. You talk about the soul, the heart, and the mind. How do spirit, twin souls, fragmented souls, consciousness, subconsciousness, intuition, instinct, and gut feelings relate to these three? Maybe it's a terminology thing, but I don't know if I understand how to differentiate between heart knowing, soul inspiration, and intuition. For example, if I perceive or feel something in my physical heart area, how do I know if it's my actual heart? For example, rapid heartbeat, flutter, etc. My heart sense, as in follow your heart, or my soul signaling me. Likewise, if I get an idea, how do I know if it's from my mind, soul, heart, intuition, or instinct? Feelings and emotions have often been used as an indicator to pay attention. Understanding the difference between feelings and emotions can be tricky, as they are sometimes used interchangeably. Any suggestions on how to differentiate the two in the moment? A person who is sensitive, are they picking up on others' feelings or emotions? Such as, does an empath sense emotions or feelings? Is fear an emotion or a feeling? And if fear is perceived, how does one decide if there's a true danger, such as gut feeling, intuition, or instinct, versus fear due to the mind trying to avoid something or wanting to stay comfortable? Any insight would be greatly appreciated. Thank you, Karen. P.S. If any of your viewers haven't read your book Believe, they should. It's a life changer.
Hi, Karen. These are really, they're amazing and wonderful questions. And you know what I love the most about them is that we get to go deep today into our mind and our perceptions and really and truly how we are choosing to be in our life, you know, and in our day-to-day life, but also how we interact with other people. So, you know, a lot of what you're talking about specifically at the beginning, you know, what your soul says is for you, you know, finding your instinct and allowing your instinct to speak louder than your mind. It's for you, they're showing me it's a knowing, and it's a knowing of sorts in the sense that it's coming in as a feeling. So it's absolutely an energy that you're feeling coming in. So they're showing me that you also have experience. Like sometimes you'll be somewhere and all of a sudden you'll get this feeling that we have to go, like we shouldn't be here right now, you know? So you get those feelings and your brain wants to question it and your brain is like, no, it's fine or whatever. But there's a bigger picture. So sometimes when we get those feelings of, no, I shouldn't be here right now, it's not necessarily that the place you're in is dangerous, but it may mean that your soul is coming in to say it's time to move along, because if you don't move along, something negative could happen on the way home. You know, it's timing issues, right? It's tricky to explain in the full sense, because right now what I'm seeing is so many different levels of consciousness all rolling into one. So I'm seeing, you know, how you physically relate, but then I'm seeing how you relate as a soul. And then I'm also seeing the universal flow and the universal energy. So I love that you talked about your soul and just allowing yourself to recognize that your soul is a part of you. So ultimately, we were created as soul beings, and then it was decided that they would create a physical experience so that souls could come and have a physical experience. So we're souls first and foremost, and then we incarnate into human existence. which I feel like that concept you get. The disconnection comes from the level of awareness that you're choosing. So our brains are designed to follow. They were never designed to lead. They're designed to follow instructions, really, okay? And just like, we go to school because we need to learn, because we're leading with our minds. We need an instruction manual to do things, because literally our brains are designed to follow instructions. Our instincts are designed to lead. It's fundamentally different. That makes sense?
That makes so much sense. Yep.
Right? And so the difference between feelings and emotions, okay? So this is a whole other level, which is actually really cool. I've talked about this so much over the last 12 years because it is tricky. It is tricky to know the difference. So an emotional reaction, emotions are reactions we have to experiences we're having, period. Okay? If there was no experience, you wouldn't have an emotion. It's just the way it is. A feeling, and the problem is that we use the word, we use the word feelings when it comes to emotions. And that's where the confusion is really coming from, because feelings are energy. They are real, they're tangible if you're aware of them. They're 100% tangible, and you can't, if I say it's black and Christine says it's blue, it's not really how it works. A feeling is a feeling is a feeling, and it's there and it exists, and it will always be black or it will always be blue. There's no interpretation, whereas emotions are interpretations of how you had that experience, how that experience unfolded for you. So if two people are, let's say, having a discussion, and one person is going to have one experience of how that unfolds, and the other person is going to have another experience of how it unfolds. They're both very individual. They could see that same experience as totally different because of their emotional reaction to the situation. So, one could feel very empowered. One could feel very, disrespected. We don't know, but it's up for interpretation. Whereas the fact that the experience happened and the energy was created, that's indisputable. Right? So, and when you get to that place where you show up with the awareness, you're no longer interpreting what's going on. It's just there, it's written, and you're in the energy of the experience. It's tricky.
It is tricky, but the interpretation, again, going back to the brain and following instructions, that's your head
based on your past.
Based on,
because your brain only knows your past.
Right.
And that's the other part, is that, when your brain is interpreting, it only knows what you've experienced, what you've heard, what you've read, what you've seen, what someone else has told you. It has no understanding of your potential at all, period. It doesn't have any understanding of, what's possible for you. It has no understanding. So if you're leading with your mind, you're going to hit a dead end every single time. You're going to always hit the ceiling. You're going to always tap out, because there is no more. But if you allow yourself to lead with your feelings, now you're going somewhere, really, because there's no limits, right? It doesn't matter what it is, whether it's a thing you're creating, whether it's a relationship, whether it's, an experience. If you're going with your heart and you allow yourself to feel into it, because that's the other thing. When it comes to energy, there really is no threat or danger, in the sense that once something's off, it's off. There's no, and your brain may go, oh no, I'm just making things up. Because I've done that, and it's happened many, many times, in the past 14 years of working with energy. I've run into some people who like to manipulate energy. And, they intentionally do that. And it's, you're always aware of it. You may not always be aware of it in the moment because you're focused on something else, but it always is there. You never miss it. And you can always easily clean it up, because when you're with your soul, none of that other stuff is more powerful than your soul, period. Hands down, it doesn't matter. And that's why being in connection with your soul is the most important thing that you can ever do. And, we only became disconnected with our souls because someone taught you to do that. It's not natural. We're all naturally built and created to be in full awareness of everything that's happening around us. So it's funny in the sense that, we're now trying to reconnect and we're telling ourselves we don't know how, right? That's what I hear a lot. I don't know how to do it. How can I remember? The reality is when you start to allow yourself to trust yourself. So there's a big, huge word, trust. And when you allow yourself to trust, that's when things start to move and things start to flow again, especially for you. There's 9 fundamental energies that we were created with. And I touch on all of them in my book, Believe. And it's phenomenal because most people, we weren't raised knowing what we're capable of. And you don't know what you're capable of if you don't know how you were created and what you were created to do, right? You just don't. I mean, when I wrote that book, it was astonishing to me because I was learning every single thing as I was writing it. It was fascinating to me. And I was like, if all people are this powerful and yet we're still stuck because of who we've been taught to be, there's a major breakdown here. Yeah. And that goes exactly to what you're talking about, And at the end of the day, you're never disconnected energetically from your soul. It's your mind that's disconnected from listening to your soul, from being able to hear what your soul wants to say in the way that your soul communicates with you. And it's always through energy. And, most people are looking for, a billboard with bright, shiny lights that are flashing, and that's how they want their soul to communicate so they don't miss it. But it's really subtle, and yet it's really strong. And once you start to get those messages, it is like a billboard with bright, flashing lights. And it's funny but it never looks like that because energetically, everything is there. Nothing is hidden. So when you really get that, you don't have to look so deep. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. Yeah. And it makes sense. And I remember when I first was introduced to how my soul felt, because I, like lots of people maybe, possibly, I didn't have awareness. It wasn't in my awareness to even think about connecting with my soul. And so when I started working with you and I first felt the energy of my soul, and I remember saying, what is that? Because I felt like home. And you explained that is the energy of my soul. Over time, I thought, oh, great, I'm connected with my soul now. Well, no, I am, but I don't have conscious awareness of that feeling and connection all the time. And so...
But yours has been growing all the time because
I've
you've been
consciously
working on it. So
yes.
And what they recommended to you, and what is always the recommendation is, as soon as you wake up in the morning, if you can only spend 5 minutes, just spend 5 minutes and just sit with yourself.
Yes.
Notice how your body feels, but notice it from a place of inside your body. So not like a doctor would look from the outside and like, does this hurt? Does that, feel it from the inside, because the more you have awareness of what your body feels like. If you go in and, like right now I can say, okay, I can feel my legs and inside my feet and right down to my toes. And I know how it feels in a resting position, so that if I'm resting and something is triggered, like if an energy comes into the room, the energy shifts. Mm-hmm. And if it's someone else's energy or if it's my soul, the energy shifts and I have an awareness, right?
Feel that, absolutely. And that's exactly, over the years, cultivating, practicing, it's building a muscle.
Yes.
That I had never, ever done before. But also, just because Karen had mentioned Believe as well, going back to Believe in, there's a Web of Creation chapter where I started to learn and understand who we were created to be.
Yes.
And that was mind-blowing when I started to understand that perspective, which shifted what I believed I was capable of.
Yes.
It totally shifted things for me.
And it's really cool because there were 9 fundamentals that we were created with, but because we've forgotten who we are, and the intention is for the entire human race to remember on a conscious level. They had to create an energy that bridged the gap between the two to bring us back.
Right.
And that energy is the energy of trust. And so trust is not a fundamental energy. We don't need it inside of us to exist, but we need it to remember how to be in connection with our soul, which is fundamentally different.
Fascinating.
Yes. It's
Never heard you
fundamentally
say it in that
different
way before.
Yeah. It's really cool. So, really and truly, Karen, don't worry so much about words. A lot of people use a lot of different words to talk about a lot of different things. For me, I feel into everything someone is saying who's right in front of me all the time. I feel into your words as you're writing them out and how you've written them. And it's, for me, the words are there, but it's your energy behind it that allows me to give you an answer that makes sense. Like, I have a lot of clients who would, ask questions in different languages, and I answer them and I tell them to get an interpreter afterwards, because at the end of the day, energy is energy. It will always speak the same language. And that's what you really want to do, is if you can focus on building that connection with your soul. So getting comfortable with your energy, then you can start to branch out and get more comfortable with other people's energy, because ultimately that's how we were designed to communicate and to exchange energy and to create. When you have the ability to feel into energy, you can create anything you want. Anything you want, from an experience to a relationship to, a new anything, a new life, and a new company. It doesn't matter, a new job. The reality is, when you understand the language of energy, which is the fundamental energy, or the fundamental language in this universe, right? Yeah. Then you've got it made, because now you speak the universal language. So anything you want, you can understand how to get it, right? It's this using our minds that we're blocked from everything because we've put this limit, right? There's a ceiling that doesn't go beyond words. I mean, how many times do you find yourself saying, there's not really a word for that? I don't really have a word for how I'm feeling. Mm-hmm. And then a lot of people will use like 5 words, and it's kind of a mix of all those words. Well, the reality is, energy doesn't need a word. It's, for me, there's a lot of people think it's really cool to have names that come through when you're, like, what's my soul's name? There's no names. Names are a human thing. They're all a mind. It's just like labels, I'm a this or I'm a that. There's no such thing as labels. Like, it doesn't matter, and that's why I, talk a lot about putting labels on family members or children or elderly when they have certain things. They're experiencing cancer. It's not their cancer, right? It's really important the way we speak and the way we use labels, because when you start to associate yourself with another word, which that word has an energy. So if you start to associate yourself with cancer or with, ADHD, right? Mm-hmm. It's the same kind of thing. You don't want to associate your brain with a label, because you're a soul being. And that changes the way you feel about yourself. It changes the way you see yourself, and you recognize your abilities, because now you've put another limit, right? Another ceiling on what you can accomplish, because someone said, this is where you belong, right? You have PTSD. You can't do this. You can't do that. The reality is, we know, because we feel what we can do and what we can't do. We're instinctual, incredible creations. And we have so much potential, and we have so much power at our fingertips. And when we fall into the trap of following what our mind says, because our mind has been trained very, very well. The problem is, our mind is not trained by a soul. It's trained by a person who in their own mind has a number of deficits. So if your brain has been trained with someone who's got a whole bunch of deficits, you're going to take those deficits on. The problem is that we're going back 15, 20 generations thick. So you've taken on all those 20 people's deficits and you're trying to build a life with that. That's why things don't work. That's why we forget that we are souls. That's why trying to reconnect with your soul on an energy level seems so hard. All you have to do is follow the energy. And I'll tell you, once you do it a few times, it just starts to flow because your soul will always speak louder to you than anyone else, except your mind. And your job is to allow your mind to have its say and choose to do it anyway. Yes?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Karen. Amazing questions. I hope I clarified some of it. If I didn't, please send us another question. We love answering, we love learning, and most of all, we love hearing from you guys. So thank you so much.
Actually, before we go, there was a few things from Karen's question that I don't think you covered. So I just want to bring this back up again and maybe we can address them. No problem. So I'll just read this part of it and then maybe we can break it out.
Perfect.
Karen also wrote, you talk about the soul, the heart, and the mind. How do spirit, twin souls, fragmented souls, consciousness, subconsciousness, intuition, instinct, and gut feelings relate to these three?
That's loaded.
I know.
Loaded, Karen.
So,
oh my goodness. Okay, so first of all, let me just, I don't even think I differentiated between the soul, the heart, and the mind. So your soul is essentially who you are. Your mind is, we talked about the soul and the mind, and your mind is, designed to lead, or follow rather, not lead. But the heart, for me, it's the physical place. It's the closest physical place in the center of my body where I feel my soul the most, which we didn't talk about at all. And yes, it's so super important because most people will sense energy there first in the center of your chest because it's that place that it's the most protected, right? So, that's also something to be aware of. And, when I wake up in the morning and I just, when I was first starting and I would feel how does my body feel? And then I would always come to my chest and, go from there. Even when I'm doing, guided soul journeys with a big group of people, we always do the body and then we come back and we start in the heart because that's where you feel the most. So, yeah. What was the next part?
Amazing. So then Karen was also wondering, she wanted to understand a bit more about spirit, twin souls, fragmented souls.
Right. Okay. So a lot of people refer to spirit as anything we can't see, but for the most part, when I'm feeling into the work that they're doing, most of them are feeling into souls who have crossed over. So it's a different vibration. So it's still a human soul. And for the most part, they've been human and they've just passed over. So that's more for me how I differentiate. Spirit is, any energy, any human being that has crossed over. Souls are the essence of that human that keeps going forever and ever, right? It's the creation in the center of the universe, and it has all the lives that it wants to have because it's a soul being. So
amazing.
Fragmented?
Yep, twin souls and fragmented souls.
Twin souls.
Twin souls.
So I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but there's a big misconception about twin souls, twin flames. So a twin is basically in essence, they're showing me right now, it is a soul that was created and it separated into two parts that became two individual souls, but they're a part of one soul experience. So all of those lives that those two souls have are designed to come together and create one intention, one experience at the end. They're extremely rare. Extremely rare. There are maybe half a dozen twin souls. So that would be 12 people
Wow.
on the face of this earth.
Oh my goodness.
It's very, very, very rare. It is not a common occurrence. There are many souls who come together and have that divine connection because they've planned for lifetimes to come together to create something phenomenal and amazing. But there are literally 6 sets. There's 2 more coming in a very short time. So that will bring us up to 8 because they have a mission that they're coming here on earth to fulfill. So ultimately there are 6. So a lot of people throw those terms around, and you don't need to have that label, just like we were talking about labels. You don't need to have that label to ensure that your relationship feels intense and deep and connected, because as souls, we're meant to deeply connect with other human beings on a soul level. That's how we were designed. That's how we were created. It's actually natural for everyone on the planet to have that experience. But again, because most of us have been leading with our minds, we don't have any connection. We use our minds to connect with each other, and that's where everything becomes limited. What we want to create together is only as big as our minds can think. So fragmented souls are, does that make sense before?
It really does.
Okay,
Yeah,
perfect.
thank you. Yep.
So fragmented souls are, it's actually really cool because we have the ability to give energy just like we experience energy. And because for the last, lots of lifetimes, it doesn't matter because time is not linear except in this life experience. So ultimately, fragmented souls are, past lives where you give a piece of yourself to someone. So when you're in a relationship and you love someone so much and you're like, we're always going to be together. You have a piece of my heart. You have a piece of my soul. We use these terms flippantly all the time. How many relationships you've done that with in your lifetime, when you do that, you give a piece of your soul away unknowingly. And as a soul being, that's not how we're meant to be. You don't give a piece of yourself to someone because you can't be all of yourself. Just by being your full self, now you're giving the fullness of you in the experience that you're offering. You don't need to give a piece. It's like, when someone posts something on social media and a whole bunch of people are like, want. And it's like, they want that thing. Like, don't want a piece of another human being. Allow yourself to enjoy the experience that you're creating together. And a fragmented soul is someone who's given so many pieces of themselves away. And I used to do a lot of workshops, and most of the time when I'm working one-on-one with someone, the first session, bang on, is let's get all of the pieces of you back, and more importantly, let's get rid of all the pieces that you took on from other people, because that sucks, because you can't be fully you when you don't have all the pieces of your soul. For me, it felt like I was a puzzle that had a whole bunch of missing pieces. And when I did it and I brought all my pieces back, it was the coolest thing. All of them were coming back. And when I let go of all the other pieces, there's a movie, a Superman movie, and at the beginning, it's in space, and there's a mirror that cracks, and all the shards go.
Yes. I know that scene. Yep, I love movies.
And that's how I felt. It was like all the pieces of everyone else were going back to them. And it was such an empowering moment to realize for the first time in my life, I'm just me. So that's, from my understanding on a universal level, and what I've learned about what a fragmented soul is. So I think, are we?
No, and also just distinguishing between, and that's not all, distinguishing between consciousness and subconsciousness.
Okay, so consciousness is your ability to have full awareness in every moment, period. So you have, and not just, what you can see, it's like, on the physical, it's consciousness is being fully aware of your impact on the entire universe, and that's big. It's big. Yes, it's big. You have awareness of what your energy is doing, what your words are doing, what your physical actions are doing, and you have awareness of how that will unfold all the way down all those lines with every single person that's in that room and in that experience. So
that's a journey to cultivate that that like becoming a conscious being. That's what that is. And
100%.
That's an extensive journey
that
you go on, that you choose to go on.
100%.
Yeah.
And I've been on it consciously for 12 years. And what happens is every single thing I learn, it expands my consciousness. So, I like to look at it as if, I'm flying above my body, and this is my body, and I'm flying above it, and everything I learn takes me a little bit higher. And it's not that it's taking me higher, it's that when you raise up, you have a better perspective of what's going on below. So the higher you go, you can see more.
Yes.
Right? Makes sense?
Absolutely.
So that's consciousness. Subconscious it's a state of being on a mental level. So it's really, and yet it's not. It's funny the way that they're showing me. It's the way, it's really cool. It's your mind's way of hiding the truth from you based on who you've been taught to be in order to survive. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. I love when they share stuff like
exactly.
Yep.
Brilliant. Totally brilliant. Such a good question. Thank you. Yeah. So ultimately, you have all this awareness in you. You have all this knowledge in you. It's literally just your job is to get out of your mind, your mind, you need to get it out of the way. And it's your greatest challenge is your mind. I say it all the time, all of us, it's getting out of your mind. Mm-hmm. And for me, all the time, it's, whenever something comes up that I'm working through, my job is to get out of my mind, because my mind will decide, how I need to be and who I need to be, but it will also decide how scared I am, if I'm scared, if I'm not scared, if I'm angry, it's going to decide. And those are all the emotions that it knows from my past. None of those are feelings. My instincts know I have to go through this, and that's why I'm being offered it. Make sense?
Absolutely, it does.
Perfect.
Yes.
Did we hit them all?
We did the main ones, and just wondering is there a distinction between intuition, instinct, and gut feelings?
No, I use them interchangeably because really it's a feeling, and all of those are just different ways to describe feelings. And sometimes the feelings are different levels, right? Sometimes it's really strong and and it's like, oh my gosh, I got to get out of here. And sometimes it's just really subtle, like something just happened, but I'm not sure what it is yet, Mm-hmm. That kind of So
there was one final thing at the very end of Karen's question too that I'm not sure if we totally covered. Is there a way to distinguish if there's a true danger?
Yes, we did talk about that because when you're following the energy, there is never danger. Even if something comes at you, you're going to know, you're going to feel it, right? When you're following the energy, even if someone's coming at you in a dangerous way, you're going to feel that energy long before it comes if you're in the energy. When you're in your mind, you're oblivious.
I see.
Right?
Yes. Okay.
So
fantastic.
There we go. Thank you so much. Have a great, great week.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Fantastic questions. Thank you, Michelle. And if you would like to have your question answered by Michelle, please go to michellevickers.com, the Consciousness Insider page, and submit your question. And hopefully we will ask it in one of our upcoming episodes. Thanks so much.
Bye now.